Johnny here for Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. Today we're going to be talking about more power or more fuel efficiency for the 2022 Ford EcoBoost. Not the hybrid, but I do have hybrid news, and I'm actually bringing this news to you a lot sooner than I thought I would. I'm going a bit out of my schedule, doing a little extra work because I don't want any of us to get fooled. There's an article out this morning that could have some easily, I think, believe that production on the hybrid has completely stopped. Now, there's nuances, and I'll go through those nuances because I don't want anyone getting fooled, anyone canceling their Maverick hybrid, believing that production has completely stopped. So what does this mean? Does it mean that when you read this article, does it mean that even if you have a hybrid VIN number, but it hasn't been built yet? Well, you could even think, oh, production stopped. That means I'm not getting my build this year. And the article does go on to say that a lot of people, their hybrids will be built for 2023. So I want to clarify that. I want to make sure that no one is stressed out and worried all over the weekend in case they have read this article. So we'll go through that. We'll make sure that you're safe and sound. And of course, then we'll finish up the video. So probably jump to the 10-minute mark if you're only here about EcoBoost, fuel efficiency, and power, because we will talk about how you can get more fuel efficiency and more power, or really one or the other, but it's a piggyback system. And what's the cost? What's the danger to all this? What might it cost you? Because it could cost you thousands of dollars. So I don't want you getting fooled on that one, but I want you to have the information because it is pretty exciting information. So you could probably just jump to about the 10-minute mark, 7 to 10 minutes. We should be talking about that. In the meantime, right before we put the pedal to the metal, I would ask that you hit the like button early on to get this information out so as many people as possible have the correct intel. Don't get fooled. Don't get upset and cancel their Maverick hybrid order. And subscribing really does help and helps you not miss out on any of this information. So let's put the pedal to the metal now. Subscribe, feed that poodle, but let's jump into that all-important intel. So just today, I woke up thinking I'm not doing a video today, but it turns out that there's information that could be very, it could be complicated for some, and it was for me, and I did a lot of background searching, but this is how the article goes. So let's just review it quickly. Straight up, they say the 2022 Ford Maverick Hybrid is sold out. So that's pretty good. That's a good little header. The title is 2022 Ford Maverick Hybrid production will resume in the summer. That's also true. So far, everything's good. What is misleading is when it says, and I'm quoting, there's trouble at the 2022 Ford Maverick Hybrid plant. Production has been totally stopped. End of sentence. So end of quote. That's easy to misunderstand. I'm not going to say it's misleading. I read through the whole article and I just feel that it didn't specifically say all the nuances. So let's clear this up. First of all, yes, to the title. If you order a hybrid now, you're going to get built in as a 2023 model, so sometime next summer. That's correct. The title is spot on. But that doesn't mean that production has, been completely halted or stopped. Because that kind of language could have anyone who has a hybrid order, whether they have a VIN, whether they don't have a VIN, could have them believing that, they're not getting a 2022 model. And that's just not the case. The factory hasn't stopped making hybrids. The factory will continue to make hybrids, but they're going to make the hybrids that were ordered for the most part prior to November 15th. Now, I have been covering on and off, and I do have a suspicion, and we do have some people who have dropped the intel right in the comment section that, that they're, let's say the 6th or 8th of November, and they've been told that they're being pushed off. Now, the reasoning for that does make sense. A certain amount of Mavericks go to each dealership. A certain percentage will be EcoBoost. A certain percentage will be hybrids. Now, of course, if, that dealership has oversold, because, Ford does this on predictions. How many vehicles and of each model as well and of each trim really need to go to each dealership. The trim's less important. They're mostly looking at models. And if a dealership really sells to, let's say, for example, a whole lot of people out of region, they could oversell what they're going to get for the year. But for the most part, we can say that if you ordered in October or prior your hybrid, you're going to get built almost certainly, almost guaranteed, a 2022 model. So quite the opposite of how we might interpret this article. That's why I'm doing this out of my schedule, putting in a little extra work. Don't want anyone thinking they're not going to get their hybrid and they might as well cancel or, go buy something else this weekend. It's going to happen. The article also mentions that, to quote them, it may be waiting on the OKTB, in brackets, the right okay to buy status. I can confirm that the okay to buy status has been given. It was given out just this previous week. So that's good. The hybrids will get delivered. If you have a VIN or if you ordered in the month of October or prior, you're getting a 22 Maverick hybrid. Now let's just talk about the whole sold out scenario. The article does talk about how, it doesn't make sense, or at least that's how I interpreted it. They point out that some dealers are still taking deposits for hybrid Mavericks. Now this can be okay, and it actually can be really okay for you, for us, for anyone who hasn't ordered the hybrid Maverick yet. There's still hope. And I want to clarify this. Your dealership cannot at this point order you a Ford Maverick and have it built as a 2022. What they can do is, take a deposit and put you on an internal list at their dealership so that when they can order a 2023 hybrid, that they'll have an order of when they took those deposits. Which means that all they have to do is, let's say, for example, June 6th of 2022 is the day that Ford says, okay, order banks are open. That would mean that dealerships can drop in their orders. Well, if your dealership has taken a sheet and they've got, let's say, 30 or 300, whatever it may be, Maverick hybrids on a list, well, they just need to drop them in the system one after the other based on the order they took those deposits. Simple as that. So there's no wrongdoing if your dealership does ask for a deposit and, sells you an order of a hybrid Maverick. But just realize at this point, it's a 2023. Don't be misled. Don't be fooled. It's not a 2022. The only way they could get you one is if someone else who has a hybrid order decides to cancel, and let's say you're number one on their list. Well, then it would make sense that they call you up and say, hey, do you want this build? You say no, pass on to number two. And I can say, I've heard and seen of this type of thing occurring. Now let's get to what some of you have maybe patiently waited for, the whole more power or more fuel efficiency. So really cool news on this. We've got a company that's doing a piggyback system. Now, what is a piggyback system and what does it do? Well, it's gonna get you either better fuel economy or more horsepower and torque. So let's just talk about that. Piggyback tune is different than an ECU tune because they're not, rewriting and remapping everything. What they're really doing is they're, kind of all those sensors, they're altering the information that goes to those sensors. So kind of tricking the system into giving you a mapping that you wouldn't normally have. So what does this mean? Simply put, for not a whole lot of money, you can either go with, and let's see what the company is, because there's three options, different settings on each. So the company is Race Chip, and they've got three models you can buy, three piggyback systems, either the S model, RS model, or GTS model. Let's start with the base model, the least expensive one. It goes for $279, and it's the S model from Race Chip. What is this gonna get you? It's gonna get you 15% fuel economy on one of the settings. There's 5 settings on this one. And, on the more extreme settings, which could very well require higher grade fuel. I highly suspect that. You could get up to an extra 20 horsepower or 22 pound-feet of torque. Sorry, 20 horsepower and 22 pound-feet of torque for $279. So the most conservative least fun to drive setting will get you an extra 15% fuel economy out of that EcoBoost engine, whereas the most extreme one, which could very well take higher grade fuel, you're looking at 20 horsepower, 22 pound-feet of torque. Now the RS model, you buy the RS model, their piggyback system from Race Chip, and you're looking at 6 different settings, one of which will get you an extra 20% fuel economy. So this is going to trick the system, the whole computing system, into sending out, using a mapping that will have, less throttle response. They're going to work that gas to air into the engine in a manner to give you more tuned down, less horsepower, less torque, better fuel economy setting or mapping, you could say. But it's, again, kind of tricking the sensors into switching into one of its alternate mapping modes. Now, you've got 6 settings. The most extreme one, of course, probably requiring high-grade fuel, high-octane fuel, is going to be 24 horsepower and 27 pound-feet of torque. That's going to cost you $399 USD. And what's pretty neat is for an extra $50, you can have these settings go to your smartphone, so you can swap between them right on your smartphone, and that'll probably capture a bit of the information and share the information of what's going on in the computer system. So pretty neat. Now let's talk about the GTS model. So the GTS model is the most expensive model. It's got 7 different settings, so you can really play around with what works for you. It's going to play, like all the other tunes, it's going to play around with what signals the computer gets in regards to, it's going to change the ignition timing. It's going to increase boost. So the increased boost, that's the one where we'll get to the risk of all this. But let's just quickly cover what the GTS can offer you. It can offer you an extra 20% of fuel economy by tuning down or having the vehicle act less aggressively. And you'll get at the other end of the spectrum with probably higher octane gas, I should say, 29 horsepower. So that's actually getting pretty impressive. And 33 pound-feet of torque. 7 settings, $399 USD at time of when Ford Authority covered this. I like to read up on the news, share it to you verbally. Its regular price is $499, making it the most expensive option, but still $500 USD for 29 horsepower or 33 pound-feet of torque. Or if you think the other option, you set it down when you don't need it and you save 20% fuel economy, it's going to eventually pay for itself unless your engine blows. So here is the consequence. When you play around with Ford's tuning system, with their mappings, pretty much always, and maybe there'll be an exception on this, I highly doubt it, pretty much always voids your warranty on the engine and the turbos. Remember when I mentioned how it plays around with the boost? Your turbo boost, so it increases boost on those more aggressive settings, and an increasing boost adds extra strain to the engine. So a manufacturer can very well say, well, we made this engine to work on, let's say, for example, 7 PSI, 7 pounds of boost, or 8 or 9, whatever it may be. Well, when you play around with that and you have the engine take in, let's say, put out more gas, take in more air, and increase turbo pressure, it only makes sense that they say, hey, that's not our recipe. That's not what we built this vehicle to do. Sorry, your engine blew. Well, it's because of altering, playing around with the system. So often, generally, no matter who the manufacturer is, you play around with their settings, their tunes, and they don't like that very much. So just keep that in mind. That is a big risk. These type of things often interest me once the vehicle's off warranty anyways. Will I do it? I'm not going to have an EcoBoost Maverick, but would I do it to my Bronco? I will when Ford Performance comes out with a tune, either a piggyback system or just a whole new programming and mapping system. If they come out with their own system, I'll probably buy it. I'll throw it on to my 2.7 liter Bronco. But at the same time, the Bronco already has so much power, and I drove the EcoBoost Maverick and it already has a lot of power. So I don't feel like it's worthwhile if I risk voiding my warranty, because engines cost a fortune. You might think that it's not back in the day of going to the scrapyard and picking up a V8 pushrod engine for, $500 and then dropping it in over the weekend. We are not there anymore. An engine will cost you thousands of dollars. I wouldn't, depending on the engine, installation can generally range between about $8,000 to $20,000. Now the $20,000, I'm sorry, that's in Canadian, so maybe about 17,000 USD, but it's either way, it's very expensive. So I hope I've been helpful. I hope I've potentially saved you a headache or a nightmare. At least you know the consequences, and we do know now that, I'm confirming as of today, the Maverick Hybrids are still being built at the plant. They're going to continue to be built at the plant over the next, several months. It's just that Ford has gotten so many orders up until roughly November 15th. Could be a little bit before at certain dealerships, but basically what they sold across summer and fall covers everything they can build for the entire year. And it's not so much what the assembly line can build. I highly suspect it comes down to components. Ford has said earlier on that supply and demand for components on the hybrid means that they've had to alter their plans. So simply put, I believe very strongly that it's about getting enough quality batteries, or the only other thing I could think of is the electric motor. We'll have to see. Well, who knows if we'll ever know for sure, but I'll certainly be covering the story. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch all the way to the end. I hope I've earned your subscription, because for us, hey, that's what feeds that poodle. It's also what dresses that poodle. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a great week. I wish you all more cars and more power, and I do hope you get to put the pedal to the metal.